I think we're live, dude.
Yeah.
Switch it over.
Well,
All right.
live isn't we're live.
Okay. What is up, y'all? This is CK. We are here for another Drinks in Quarantine, and it has been a hell of a week, capped off by a hell of an announcement this morning. Um, Before we get into the show, let's pass it off and do some introductions. Let's pass it off to my co-host, Brand, and then go to the rest of our fantastic panelists.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Brand BTC. Wow, I agree. What a week. This is really exciting. I'm excited to talk to everybody about all the stuff that's happened, even beyond this past week. It's just been a wild couple of weeks, really. So very excited. We've got a great crew. And CK, let's just jump right into the introductions.
Cool. Well, let's go over to Ollie. You were the first to jump into the Zoom, so I think you can be the first to introduce yourself. Why don't you tell the audience where you're from and who you are?
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Ali Hammam. I am one of the co-founders of Tahini's Restaurants. We are a chain of Middle Eastern food here in Ontario. We operate a company with 4 corporate locations and 3 franchise locations about to be open up this year. And we recently went on the Bitcoin standard and super pumped about it.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think we covered you a little bit on Bitcoin Magazine, but I think that this quarter or I guess last quarter and this quarter is kind of turning into the year where it becomes politically and reputationally okay to be on a Bitcoin standard. Let's jump over to Stacy. Stacy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Stacy Waleko. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm a backend developer at Casa, where we're focused on making self-custody safer and easier. Our flagship product is a multi-sig platform that is designed to be super easier to use, but at the higher tiers, we do offer client services, which is basically like a personal security consultant that'll go over things like duress words, emergency lockdown procedures, or even questions like, what's the best Faraday bag for my cold card? But yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm excited to hear what you and the Casa team are thinking about all these companies picking up Bitcoin. Let's jump over to Kenny. How's it going, Kenny?
Good. Thanks for having me. My name's Kenny, and I work on a project called Urbit. And at Urbit, we believe that sound money deserves sound computing, and that's what we're building, a sound computer, a next generation sort of peer-to-peer internet. And we've got our Bitcoin wallet in the works. It's been in the works for many months, but we really do think it'll be coming out within the next soon, probably by the end of the year. But that's what I do. And thanks again for having me.
Soon TM. All right.
It's always
hopefully it is truly soon. All right, let's go to My Living Truth. Welcome back to the show.
What's up, CK? What's up, everyone? What's up, world? This is Optimus Fields at My Living Truth. Just a basic Bitcoin Twitter shit poster. Also a co-host of Bitcoin Kindergarten with Bitcoin Magazine's very own Nick Can't Mine. And just super hyped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Welcome back. And last but certainly not least, Bitcoin Audio. Welcome back to the show yourself.
Thanks for having me. No, this is a good show, this whole Drinks in Quarantine. It came out of somewhere, though, right? Had there been no COVID, I mean, would there be a Drinks in Quarantine? It's crazy how many things come out of this. But yeah, thanks for having me. I want to give a shout out to Tommy and Flip, though, before anything. Those two guys, stand-up guys, like yo. Tommy and Flip.
Tommy, you just got a shout out.
Yeah,
Bitcoin
shout out to
Audio.
Tommy. All right, guys. Well, this is Drinks in Quarantine. We have a couple of drinking rules. So if you say these words, you got to drink. We have the Brian Armstrong rule. So we're not saying Bitcoin. If you say Bitcoin, you got to drink. And we're not saying the word drink. So if you say the word drink, you got to drink. And the rules are made to be broken here. So I'll drink to that.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Well, I mean, I think I want to start off by talking about regulatory crackdowns, because I think last week there's this bombshell news about BitMEX, Sam Reed from BitMEX being arrested, the founders of BitMEX being at large and with warrants out for their arrest. And the CFTC and a bunch of alphabet soup agencies really kind of, flexing their muscles and going after BitMEX. What we have seen has been pretty unprecedented. First and foremost, BitMEX said, hey, we're going to fight this. But secondly, they said, we're still operating. You can withdraw your funds and the exchange is still up, which makes you think like, wow, Bitcoin kind of works for them. Their funds didn't get frozen. They are not in a defensive position. Like, they're still alive and they can kind of pick their battles and move forward with this as they feel comfortable. I'm just kind of curious who here has a strong opinion about what we're seeing unfold with BitMEX and what we can start kind of gleaming from these events playing out. Anyone excited to jump in first, or should I just call on you?
I mean, I'll jump in.
All right, go for it, Optimist.
First of all, kind of shout out to BitMEX and Arthur Hayes and all them for making a stand, even though BitMEX, gets some flack. But I thought it set a pretty good precedent of just being like, fuck you guys, we're doing everything abiding by the laws that we know. And so, we knew that this time was going to come. We knew that at a certain point, like the regulatory crackdowns were going to come and they were going to come for Bitcoin. It wasn't going to be, kumbaya forever. So it is a little worrying that as a Bitcoiner, we are going to see some flack. This is the very beginning of it, in my opinion. And so it is a little worrisome as just, someone that believes in Bitcoin and holds Bitcoin and believes the message behind Bitcoin. But I also, like CK said, it's almost like Bitcoin works. It's like it does what it says it does, and the fact that they can't stop BitMEX from doing what they're going to do is super bullish in my opinion. And then furthermore, that the price didn't do much with that news. It's super bullish, but it's also kind of worrying as a Bitcoiner that wants to see Bitcoin be money, and just seeing governments crack down on us and make us all criminals just because we're holding a different currency is, it's fucked to see, but Bitcoin will win in the long run. So not too worried about it.
Yeah,
Optimist, I hope you're drinking behind there, but go for it, Stacey.
It's Modelo time. It's Modelo time.
I think one of the remarkable things is they just continue to process withdrawals. And, I don't know too much about how exchanges work, but I saw Lop tweet that they have a multi-sig manual process that is clearly nation state resistant at this point because they just continue to let people cash out.
I think prior to the crackdown, all the co-founders would get together like ritually every morning and process the multi-sig withdrawal from cold storage. Wow. That was their process. So yeah, multi-sig works.
Where are they based? Where are they based out
of? I think they were
the Seychelles.
Yeah, Seychelles is where they were legally incorporated.
But I think like Arthur and crew are like in Asia. Obviously, Sam Reed was in Boston, which made him a victim of being arrested first. But I personally don't know much more about like their geographic location.
It's crazy how they're big, right? Organization. There might be a balance somewhere where these companies here in the U.S. are moving their cash into Bitcoin because of inflation. It's like the right thing to do, right? It makes sense. But the bullies are coming. It feels like, who are they coming for? Like, who are they threatening? It's strange because you kind of, if you look at it, you understand what I'm saying? Like where you see where the money, like the big money's moving into Bitcoin, but they're still coming. What do you think about that?
I think the best thing about that is like it goes to show that there's Bitcoin exchanges in every continent of the world, right? And if regulations want to crack down on one, Bitcoin, you can easily transfer it without any government resistance or anything like that. So I see it as it gives more power back to the individuals, and BitMEX processing all the withdrawals, even going through all that, just goes to show like how strong the infrastructure is, right? And that's why we didn't see that, like the price dip down too much. We didn't see people freaking out because you can easily say, okay, no problem, I'll take, I'll buy or sell on any other exchange in the world, and yeah, it's just power to the people, man.
You bring up a good point, right? Like Bitcoin's reaction to the BitMEX news was it kind of went down and then it mostly shrugged it off. And here we're actually at a higher price at this point. Anyone have an opinion about how Bitcoin's price kind of reacted to the news?
Honey Badger don't care.
No.
Yeah, like the price is just gonna do whatever the price is gonna do. I don't like to even look at the price, on a daily, every hour, because I used to do that when I first got in, and then I realized it was a little toxic. So yeah, I'm more addicted to Twitter now than I am to price.
I'll give a contrarian take here. I actually think that for Bitcoin's price specifically, the BitMEX news is almost good news. Similarly, with the regulation that came out of the UK saying that at the end of like 2021 or something, it'll be illegal for UK residents to hold Bitcoin derivatives. I think both of those force people to some extent, if they want to play with Bitcoin, all right, you got to go straight for the hard asset. These are like, these liquidity explosions that happen around Bitcoin that make it much harder for the scarcity to kind of shine through as one of the aspects that control the price. So with, money getting taken off of BitMEX, that's now like people have to buy the asset in order to own Bitcoin and leverage up. So I don't know. It's a lukewarm take, but I haven't heard too many people talk about just the amount of derivative volume that occurs on BitMEX, and how that volume may actually not all just switch to derivative volume on another exchange, but actually could go back into trading volume of the asset itself.
Bullish, let's go.
Yeah.
I think I thought.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
So I actually thought that was that was very cool because I see so many people like trading with leverages that are just insane, and they're using BitMEX and other platforms to do so. And I think that when you take like 100x leverage on a Bitcoin position, which is already like really
Really volatile.
yeah, sorry, it's already really volatile. Like you'll get shaken out with any little drop that happens in the market, right? And when you take some of that leverage out, it kind of gets like the daily traders and these guys out of the way, so that stronger hands can go in and just scoop it up.
Yeah, those are very good points. I mean, how many people are on that exchange that shouldn't be trading, right? How many people are out there, they're just getting in, they're excited, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get rich, and you know what? We're shutting down. Get your money off. You're forced hodl, right? Now they got to hold on to that, maybe move to a different exchange.
Well, they're not shutting down though.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the point, is that they're getting attacked. One of their co-founders is in jail, but they're 100% Bitcoin, so they're still up. Like I'm waiting for the DNS takedown. I don't know how the legal process
my bad.
works.
They took down
that.
Their site, right?
They haven't done anything. Yeah.
Okay.
They had no funds to freeze. They're still running. They just arrested their guy and said you're under arrest, but they're geographically arbitraging.
Well, and this morning they announced that they were removing everyone who was kind of on that list from their leadership of the company. So they've done some personnel shifts as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they haven't shut down the exchange itself, which is interesting. It's a bold move, and like it makes sense under their claim that they're going to fight this and contend that they did nothing wrong. You definitely don't want to, shut down after you say you've done nothing wrong, right? So it just makes sense. But yeah, good point. You're muted.
Yeah.
It's all right. The thing here is that it's because of Bitcoin, right? Like I want to shift this conversation, like, yeah, whatever derivatives, like let's talk about what does it mean for companies to hold Bitcoin and what power does that give them? right? Like, let's imagine if Google all of a sudden has no confiscatable assets. Like all of a sudden they could truly be a multinational company and all of their treasury is in unseizable hard cash. Like that's a different beast of a company. That's just something that we've never seen before. Like any thoughts on that cosmic idea?
Yeah, well, I mean, even on a corporate level, it does the same thing that it does for individuals, right? Which is it increases their freedom and the options that they have available to them. It makes trade much easier because a lot of these transnationals are doing business across borders, and now instead of settling, these giant SWIFT networks, they can use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, possibly. And if nothing else, they can use it just to hedge against other macro trends that might hit their bottom line. It seems like a pretty safe, well, maybe not safe bet, but reasonable and calculated based on whatever your business is. But yeah, it gives them the same freedom it gives us.
Let's hear Ollie's take on it. He's actually doing it.
Doing like on a corporate level.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
do you feel like you're a sovereign company?
Yeah, so I feel like Bitcoin changed me personally, and changed my partners in our like work ethic and our sovereignty. Really, like I feel that I go to work every day with like tap dancing. You know what I mean? Just that, and just in a better mood in general. Just because I feel like we're not being stolen from. That every day that I go to work, the value that we're going to create is going to store across time and space, and that to me has been the biggest like change that Bitcoin has done for us.
Dang, I can say the same thing personally, like in regards to work ethic or what have you. Now that I hold Bitcoin and I save in Bitcoin, I don't, as much as I am grinding, I don't really hate the grind anymore. Like I'm happy to grind, I'm happy to stack sats. I'm happy to save away for my future. And, like I'm not on a corporate level. I'm basically just like, wage cuck over here. So I just, save as much of my paycheck in Bitcoin as I can. But there is like a fundamental mental shift where before Bitcoin or before understanding Bitcoin is hard money, you just kind of, you want to work as little as possible. You want to just, put in as little effort as possible so you can just get by. But now when I stack and I'm just like, all right, like let's get this shit done. Like, I'm stacking sats. I'm good to go. I still have those days where I'm pretty bummed about it, but I'm just like, all right, man, like it's all for the sat. So we're good to go.
Yeah, it's almost like it gives you purpose, like more purpose in what you do. Like if I like hypothetically, if you have $1,000 and that's all that you're gonna have for the rest of your life, and I come in and steal a penny out of you every day, eventually you're going to get depressed, bummed out, and you're gonna hate yourself, right? So Bitcoin just fixes that, and yeah, it's an amazing feeling. But uh, sorry, but like going back to the exchanges part, I wanted to kind of send a message to all the exchanges out there where they need to really look at what happened and kind of protect their customers, because I feel like the goal of, or maybe the future regulations and stuff like that is going to be, okay, this exchange is doing something extremely illegal. We're going to go in and try to confiscate all of their Bitcoin because it's an illegal entity, or whatever the case is, the future cases. And I think they're going to, like if they're successful at doing that, at taking the exchanges Bitcoins which belong to the customers, I think that will be a hit to Bitcoin and to like just the security of it. People are going to be more afraid of it now if something like that happens. So to all the exchanges out there, be careful. like protect your customers' bitcoins as best as you can, and don't mess up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real answer, the long-term answer is self-custody. But I think exchanges have a conflict of interest there because they make their money off of trading. So they want to make it as easy as possible for you to trade, which means that they're going to custody for you. But I do agree, like clearly BitMEX did something right with the fact that they can still process withdrawals. But at the end of the day, I think the government can go pretty far in terms of how they force a company to relinquish Bitcoin. Like, I mean, you can do a multi-sig setup where you have keys in nations that will not cooperate. Aside from that, I can't think of too many other ways to secure it.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta make it really hard and make it really expensive, and then if that is repeated over and over again, governments just have a limit to how far they can scale and how much resources they have. So I think like Bitcoin is defensive technology. So really, when you're saying like how what can you do, I think just it's all about having exponential people and companies that are all living sovereign lives that are all custodying and are all, yeah, one could be fragile, but like as a whole, as an ecosystem, they are, relatively, difficult and robust to take down.
Kenny, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think going back to the regulation part, I do think that regulating around the edges is likely to be the pattern going forward. It's sort of the easiest thing they can do. It's also where the records are in terms of tax purposes and all these other things. But I also think it's a very dangerous thing to pick up entrepreneurs, like in like who's the one that got picked up, the one that was in the United States. Sure, okay, well, what kind of effect might that have? Well, if all the people that are working in this space and then all the other adjacent spaces leave, or otherwise don't do business in the United States, that is going to be on par net negative to the country, and I just don't want to see that happen. So there's also an appeal to the regulation to, like, don't fight what's inevitable. Like, work with us. We don't want to necessarily fight you, but this is a thing that we're going to have to work together to integrate. I think integration into the normal system, like this is the new system. Like, don't fight that. And if you try to do that, then it's just not going to work.
Yeah, you actually bring up a really good point, because how are gonna, like, individuals going to fight back? They're not gonna actually fight back. They're just gonna take their capital and leave, right? And that's the worst thing that could happen to any country, right? If people with big amounts of wealth decide to take all of their wealth and leave the country, I don't think any country wants that, right? So they might try to find a balance, but I think Bitcoiners have the upper hand in that if they do it right, they can take their wealth and leave, and not like fight them by not fighting them at all, like just leaving, right? And that's the
Bitcoin is the exit.
Yeah.
Before you had to exit with no value. Now you can liquidate everything, put it in your brain wallet, and get the H out of there.
100%.
It's very peaceful.
But I mean, we know that the governments aren't gonna, or the powers that be, whatever, aren't gonna just like slink away and not try to exert their power over Bitcoiners. So like, I feel like it is, it's like, it's very hopeful to think that they're not going to try to crack down on us. But I feel like for the majority, they still don't understand Bitcoin like we do. And so they may think that they can crack down on it. And then once they get down the rabbit hole and they realize the feedback loop of trying to crack down on Bitcoin, then they'll be at that point, like with their hand on the stove and be like, oh shit, that was a bad move. We can't really do that. And then they'll start backtracking, and then they'll try to gain Bitcoiners' favors. So, I mean, I really hope that we have the, like Safety almost says, the House of Cards basically, disappears one card at a time, more of, like you guys are saying, like a peaceful revolution. It happens slowly versus one giant collapse. So like I really do hope that it is a peaceful transition to Bitcoin. But there's also just like that part of me that is just like very paranoid, and it's just like shit's gonna hit the fan. And I don't want to be on the brunt end of that stick when the state and sends all its powers down on us, and not destroys Bitcoin, but makes examples of certain individuals. And it's like, personally, shit, like I don't know if I'm ready to be the example for fucking some state attack. So like that's definitely where my head's at, where I'm like, okay, like I need to protect myself and my family as best as possible, because it is a possibility. But I really just hope that it is a slow transition, and we just kind of dismantle the house of cards one card at a time.
All right. Well, speaking about, sorry, Brand, go for it.
I was just going to jump in because we're talking about, ways that this can peacefully go. And I hear you, my living truth, in that, everyone kind of thinks about the ways that it could all go really wrong. One thing that the Michael Saylor and the Square crypto, owning, or Square, not crypto, owning Bitcoin on their balance sheet makes me think about is, and I haven't seen this take yet, but I'm probably not the first person to think about this. But, companies don't want to, Tahini, right here, you don't want to hold dollars on your balance sheet that you don't have to hold, right? And so what we see currently is that a lot of these big companies are doing stock buybacks as like a way to, save money effectively, like, invest into the company, invest into this asset that, they can somewhat control, it's their own stock. And then it's like a safe way to not hold dollars on your balance sheet in some sense, right? Well, one thing that we're also running into an inevitable train wreck around is that regulation will be coming, especially if, one side of the U.S. politics wins, where that will be illegal or at least highly regulated for companies to be able to hold their own, like do stock buybacks with surplus profits. So one way to circumvent that, and the way that, Square just laid out in their own little sheet that they just put out today, is how to, instead of, buy your stock back, buy Bitcoin. And that's one that, if there's a lot of profit going on in the market, then Bitcoin is just going to go up because all these companies are going to be holding on their balance sheet. So I haven't seen that take. I don't know if that's really uninformed, but it was just something that I was thinking about earlier today.
No, I think it's completely true. And when you listen to Michael Saylor talking about his decision-making process, they were taking the cash and they did two things with it. They bought stock with it, and then they bought Bitcoin with it. So like that's exactly what they're doing. So they divested their cash, bought stock, bought Bitcoin. And I think that them and now Cash App, they're paving the road, because there was never something that was truly digital gold before. But now they can have digital gold, with it's something that feels like a stock, but it's not like, a dollar in a crappy bank account.
Totally. And going back to what My Living Truth was saying, something to hold hope onto is if every single Fortune 500 company is holding millions of dollars in their treasury of Bitcoin, very quickly it becomes unpopular for them to try and do anything to touch Bitcoin from a regulatory standpoint. So fingers crossed on that. I don't know if that's going to end up being something that plays out, but definitely something that I'm thinking about.
Well, I would like, and I would love to hear the panelists push back here too, but I would push back and say that a lot of there's a way for Bitcoin to win and be super compliant, right? And that doesn't necessarily, maybe you could say that Bitcoin and sovereignty and individualism will win in the end, but having a Bitcoin that is KYC'd from end to end and captured is something that can totally happen with all these companies, piling on. Yet that Bitcoin does get a feature stripped away from it, which is that kind of like digital cash, not traceable feature.
Well, one thing, but companies get, or a knock-on effect is that so now you see one company, now it's two, and then three, and then four, and as the price changes, I'm not necessarily going up, but if it does go up because of scarcity, then a feedback loop starts to initiate. Whereas if you don't do it, then you're going to have to pay a higher price to put that onto your balance sheet. You might see a mad rush at a corporate level, especially given Brand's insight that, well, what if regulation changes and this is like really the only option that you've got? Not only that, but I think this is where it starts in terms of balance sheets, but it's not where it ends. Meaning, as these corporates take on Bitcoin onto their balance sheet, just wait until a federal bank of like Bermuda or something puts Bitcoin onto their balance sheets. Then it becomes a sovereign race to acquire Bitcoin. And at that point, maybe that's also another way we get around some of these, these issues of, well, is this illegal? And then at that point, when sovereigns take it on, it'll just be the medium of exchange at the nation state level.
I'll take you one step further. I know I'm talking too much, but I also was thinking about, this is a while back, I was game theorying this. If a whole bunch of companies start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and say it's like, let's just throw out Facebook, who has, let's say, an excess of $100 million a month. I'm probably lowballing that, right? That they're putting into Bitcoin. Well, very quickly, either they're eating the price up like crazy, or they're going to sit in a position where they have so much Bitcoin on their balance sheet that they can't liquidate, that they will actually be forced to come up with creative ways to implement Bitcoin payments on their network that you can then, like, they can exit their position from, because they don't want to just market sell. And so actually by holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you're potentially Trojan horsing yourself into implementing Bitcoin operability throughout your system.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin Tina go for it. I was going to say, Bitcoin Tina just messaged me saying that the notion of businesses buying Bitcoin before $10 trillion market cap is nuts.
Yeah. But to what Brand was saying, you can even disguise that. So, we all know about Libra, but let's just say Facebook has dollars, but they're actually dollars backed by Bitcoin. And let's say Bermuda, like the central bank, they also have dollars, but it's just dollars backed by Bitcoin instead of, our previous gold standards. I could very easily see that starting out in a private setting, but easily moving towards other jurisdictions where they have real trouble trying to either issue currency or keeping it stable.
So I think the world will eventually hone in on the hardest money, and that's what Bitcoin is. The more and more companies that like MicroStrategy, Square, and all the small and medium-sized businesses that are doing that, it's going to become like harder and harder for people to crack down on that, because who are you going to go first? Are you going to go for the little guy, or are you going to go for Square, or MicroStrategy, like a $1.5 billion company? So the bigger the corporations that get into Bitcoin, I guess you have to regulate them first, right? You can't go after the little guys when a public company has Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So it's going to get harder and harder as the game theory plays out, and that's why we think corporations are eventually going to buy Bitcoin. And ever since we came public with our announcement, our whole message and one of our messages on Twitter is, for medium and small size businesses, let's front run that, right? The big corporations are coming. We've seen it today with Square, MicroStrategy. They're coming. They're coming, and Bitcoin's not going to care about anybody's feelings, right? If you're the last one to buy it, it's not going to solve the inequality problem, but it's going to solve the fairness problem, right? So small and medium-sized businesses need to wake up to this now. They need to educate themselves. They need to go down the rabbit hole and study. And that's what we did. Listen, we're Bitcoin class of 2020. We just came in this year. I've ignored Bitcoin for the past, I've known about it since maybe 2013, and I've ignored it, right? And
making me feel like a vet.
You are. And kudos to you guys. I wish I've known about it earlier, but I'm not complaining. I know now.
So buying Bitcoin cheaper than me.
And I really think people should just do their homework on what this is. This is freedom. This is a way to store your hard work for your kids and grandkids over time so nobody can mess with it. It's a way to avoid capital controls. I've seen capital controls after the revolution in Egypt. We all moved out of Egypt in 2011, and my parents wanted to retire. And when they wanted to leave, the banks froze the money coming out of the country. Their money, they froze it. Sorry, I can't do it. You can only do $1,000 a month, right? It's ridiculous that they can do that with your money. So people say, I am very public about this. Like when I meet people here, and they say, no, I need to, like, it's in the air. Like I can't hold it, right? And I'm like, all money is digital. That's what most people don't get. How much of your wealth is stored in physical cash or physical gold? Right? People who are saying, "Oh, we need to hold it." Think of how much of your wealth are you actually holding? It's all numbers that are on your bank account, and the bank account is not working like your bank. It's just not, right? So, hopefully people can get our message, like with the middle class, the lower class. Bitcoin's not going to care about your feelings, guys. I'm sorry. This is just how it is. Do your homework and get on the Bitcoin standard.
Hey, on that, just a quick, because you gave an example of your own personal, moving from Egypt and things like that. I hear some people say, well, Bitcoin is it's more useful for like in the third world countries and people who don't have banks. Where's the connection where you can explain to someone it's not just for, people in Egypt who are trying to leave and they can't, take their money with them. It's not just for people who can't open up a bank account.
Yeah.
How do you like translate that into people who are here where I am in the United States, who, they grew up knowing fiat and 100%. They grew up knowing it, and that's what I know. That's what I use. I don't know anything different. I don't care to know anything different because it works for me. How do you translate the need to have your own sovereign hard money? You understand what I'm saying?
Number go up, man. China went down because it was on the silver standard. Hard money just wins out.
Yeah. But no, you're right. It is extremely hard to do that. It's I've had like lots of trouble, and I try to tweak my approach every time I talk to a non-coiner about this. But right now, I just mentioned the idea of a piggy bank. Okay, the idea of savings is engraved in us ever since we were like earning our first pennies by a piggy bank, right? Whatever money you earn, you put it in the piggy bank and you save it for next year or whatever, right? Unfortunately, the piggy banks of the world don't operate like that, okay? The piggy banks of the world, where we all put our money in, where you, me, everybody here, everybody watching, they put their money in the banks, and their piggy bank has a hole in the back, right? And they reach in and they take your money and they lend it out to A, B, C, D, E, and so on. And that's fractional reserve banking. And when they do that, they essentially, you're giving them power to print more money, because when you take a mortgage of $1 million house, for example, you're paying that over 30 years, 1.3 or 1.4 million dollars, right? And you're allowing that bank to basically mine that extra 300 or 400,000, and that's being done on a scale of trillions. All right, not to mention the central bank printing that's going on. So your money is getting devalued at a rate that you can't even fathom. And I try to explain that, and it hits a lot of deaf ears, but I'm trying, man.
I think if you can explain inflation, you can get pretty far. And I don't know if other kids were like this, but I always wondered like how things were so cheap for my grandparents and really expensive nowadays. Like you could get a pair of shoes for 10 cents.
Yeah.
But I want to come back to something that you said, CK, about two Bitcoins. Because even if we've got all these Fortune 500 companies adopting Bitcoin, that's great. I think that solves the monetary policy problem, the inflation problem that we're talking about. But there could be a world where we only deal in KYC Bitcoin. Like if you try to send something somewhere, somebody along the way is going to try and stop you. And I think that's the other battle that needs to be fought.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough battle though. Like already already like OTC desks are starting to like implement like no mixing standards and stuff like that, where this battle has started. And maybe Bitcoin is just the bridge to the future, but it ultimately gets captured. Maybe that's something that maximalists hate to hear, that Bitcoiners hate to hear. But it's like we got to be vigilant too if we want like Bitcoin to remain larger than these entities.
Yeah, like I'm picturing a world where it's the law that every Bitcoin that you accept as a payment, whether you're just a small store or you're a loan provider and you're looking at somebody's assets to see if you can issue them a loan, it's on you to make sure that all that is KYC'd, and that's what I'm afraid of.
So that's what the BitMEX thing kind of like showed. That's what that precedent is like we don't give a crap if you blocked US VP or US what's it called?
IP addresses.
IP addresses. Like you got to make sure that that no one from America is using your platform.
Yeah, but Stacy, like the alternative is to hold either cash that's also KYC'd or hold gold or stocks that's also KYC. There's no we see a lot of people worried about KYC. It doesn't matter. Everything's KYC'd. Right? Everything like
not cash.
Yeah, but how much of that are you gonna have around? And
that's under attack too.
Even non KYC cash is still so like way inferior to Bitcoin that's KYC'd, right? Like if you have an option between one or the other, like what are you gonna take, really? Right? So I don't worry about that. I don't think people should. We're not trying to do something illegal with Bitcoin. We're just trying to protect our wealth. We're public about it anyways. So yeah,
I think the thing that both of you are kind of hitting around is this idea that, we as a society, for whatever reason, and I could pontificate on the reasons, but we don't value privacy. We think that privacy is like some opt-in thing and not a fundamental right of human beings. And so because of that, you always have to have this weird defensive argument when you're saying that I should have privacy, where it's like, well, yeah, I'm not doing anything bad with it, but like I should just be able to have it. And it's so funny that somehow you have to get defensive when you're demanding privacy. I mean, it's like getting defensive by saying, I want the right to free speech. Well, it's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to say anything awful, but I still deserve the right to free speech, right? And no one would disagree with that. So then why do people disagree about privacy? It baffles me. But, if I were to just throw out one reason why, I think you look at kind of how we've been co-opted as a society through fear around topics of, these independent actors who can wreak havoc on our system. And therefore, we must make the system so tight around its edges that no independent actor can do that. And, we call it terrorism, and there's plenty of terrorism. I mean, don't get me wrong. But, like, the things that we'll sacrifice in order to prevent terrorism are going to be the things that allow you to operate as an independent person, period, from the system. And so I think that that's an interesting, like, dilemma that our society is coming to a head on in a lot of ways. And I hate that privacy has become, you know, such a weird subject when it should be just a fundamental right.
Agreed. Like I am very much cautious of KYC coins, even though, or maybe just the KYC narrative of it being bad. I definitely, you know, Bitcoin can be used privately, and I definitely believe people should try to be as private as possible. But I kind of also fall into the idea of we're basically like the sacrificial lambs at this point. Like we're the ones that are getting into the system early. We are for the most part KYC'd, and so that's only going to be a small minority in my opinion, the early adopters, and like not necessarily the smart adopters, the guys that get it on non KYC sources. But I feel at a certain point, who knows like what the ratio is of the population or whatever, but after a certain percentage of the population getting into Bitcoin, and they might be via KYC sources, I feel like at that point, when there's enough Bitcoiners around the world to have a meaningful circular economy that we're all, you know, wanting to reach and we all advocate for, that the KYC kind of won't matter as much because people will just be receiving Bitcoin. And so there will be more Bitcoin users just getting paid in Bitcoin and not getting Bitcoin in via KYC exchanges or what have you. And so I feel like it's just kind of one of those issues of just being so early to this game that, you know, for the most part, a lot of us are KYC'd. And so right now it's a big concern for us. But I feel once there's enough Bitcoin saturation in society that it won't even really be in effect, because after a certain point there'll just be so many hops away from KYC Bitcoins, UTXOs, that you won't even know who owns what. It'll just be like, okay, it's proliferated in society, and Bitcoin's out there, and you can't shut it down, and who knows who owns what Bitcoins, because like it's easy for me to be like, I sent it off to someone or I lost it, and you know, it's now 20 hops away from me. So who knows who has that, and who knows what happened. It's like I gave it a gift to my friend or my, you know, my cousin or whatever. And so I feel like it's just an early concern for us. We're so early to the game, and like we started the show, that we're having like a lot of regulatory crackdowns, and so we're all hypochondriacs and paranoid, and you know, we don't want to get basically squashed by the state because we're taking away their one last extreme power that they have, and that's their chokehold over money. And so we are all paranoid of that idea, but I think it's just one of those things that will happen in time where KYC will be kind of an old concern. We'll be like, remember when we were all afraid of KYC? It's like, yeah, everyone has Bitcoin now, and it's not that big of a deal. So, but that's also me just like sipping the hopium. So who knows?
No, that's a great point, a great way to look at it, especially if, you know, it's like an exponential thing where chain analysis companies, they just can't keep up. So there's just so many people using Bitcoin that they can't figure out who sent who to what without a supercomputer or something, you know what I mean, to analyze the whole thing. I like that point.
So we've been kind of bouncing around this specific subject. We've been talking about companies holding on to Bitcoin, but the news of the day today is our favorite public company, Square, officially bought Bitcoin. Like, it was kind of like it was a huge win, but at the same time, I was like, all right, like, it's not a surprise. Like, they didn't even have like, hey, we're trying not to burn cash reason. They're just like, we think Bitcoin's the future, and like, we're already doing Bitcoin stuff and making shitloads of money off of Bitcoin, so why not, right? That was kind of like their attitude. Whereas like Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy is like, I got a problem and Bitcoin solves it. So it's a very different kind of an announcement. Like, I'm curious to get, what do you guys think of this announcement in particular, and then more importantly, who's next, right? Because I think like obviously Square is already Bitcoin friendly.
Well,
I'm just curious. I'm sorry.
No, you can go hit it.
Yeah, I was just curious to know, because if you can buy Bitcoin on Cash App, they already have Bitcoin, don't they? Like, how does that work in the
But
back
now
end?
but well, like whatever, they fucked around with Bitcoin. They did business in Bitcoin, but now they have Bitcoin as like their holdings.
Right, like
Like there's like we have
MicroStrategy
money.
does.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. It's but
Okay.
except MicroStrategy went all of their cash into Bitcoin and stock buybacks. Square just went like 1.8% into Bitcoin.
For now, right? I can't see them just like that's it for now. Eventually, that's going to ramp up, I guess. I mean, why not? It makes sense.
Yeah, I think Square would be announcing another announcement of another Bitcoin purchase, the same way Michael Saylor did. Um, he kind of the way he tested out the waters and you know, see if his shareholders wanted to sell out. He offered he had a tender offer, you know, to buy back, you know, those shares, and um, you know, it's just you know, like once you own Bitcoin, you can never just own 1%, right? And you guys
Facts.
all know this. You guys all know this like intuitively. And when we came into this, I tried to like because you know, like I got like when I made it like, you know, our primary reserve asset, I was like every Bitcoiner should be on the Bitcoin standard and should have more than 50%, right? So I was wanting to get that message out there, and I did a poll. How many of you guys have more than 50%? And all the Bitcoiners have over 50%, right? So I thought, you know, people had less, maybe 10, 20 or whatever, but Bitcoiners get it, man. They get it. And once you go down that rabbit hole, you won't stop. I think Square will do, or Twitter, either or. There'll be a next announcement for sure.
Well, you're not a real Bitcoiner if you're not all in. So let's just put that out there.
I
No, but
wonder internationally, like, there's probably big news internationally. You know, these are two U.S. companies, right? I mean, how many quietly, well, you know, businesses internationally are doing that, but not making it public?
Well, there's no benefit to making it public until you've fully acquired your position, right? I think Square is kind of the outlier, but when you're talking about like Michael Saylor, like he's sweating bullets every second, and it's like it's kind of crazy to like listen to Michael Saylor talk because he's obviously extremely intelligent, obviously like onboarded to Bitcoin extremely fast, but he's still like a newbie. Like he still hasn't really been here that long. And like just hearing him talk, you get like little bits of that like newbiness out of him. And when he was talking about like when they were making those buys, he was like sweating every second, like who's selling this stuff? Like I can't wait until we finally have our position. And it's funny to hear that, but you know that process is going to just continue to renew itself with new entrepreneurs as they continue to onboard.
yeah, no, that's literally my favorite part about Michael Saylor. He's got the like Bitcoin bug that everyone gets like at the beginning once you fully understand Bitcoin, and all you can do is just like tweet shit out and you're just like amazed and so excited and you're just like, how the fuck do you people not see this? And you're just like so animated about it, and you can tell that he's at that point right now. He's not like all burnt out and jaded like the rest of us. We're like, okay, yeah, like we know this. Okay, he's just like fired up about it, and it's so tight that, you know, he's got freaking bags and he's a rocket scientist, and it's just like, all right, dude, like keep making the memes for us, you know, like Cyber Hornets, like that's a solid meme. It's like, dude, all right, like keep tweeting, because he's just been on fire the past couple of weeks, and you're just like, every tweet I see from him, I'm just like, that's a solid tweet, bro, like good job.
Yeah, well, we're leveling up too. Like let's get an Elon Musk meme master tweeting about Bitcoin full time. Like I can't wait for that.
I can't imagine 2022 Michael Saylor, Bitcoin bear market Michael Saylor. You know, the memes that he's gonna put out then. It's gonna be painful. We'll all feel for him.
Auto pussies.
Are we still on the topic of companies that we think are gonna buy Bitcoin next?
We haven't even talked about that yet, but
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, my bad. I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. Well, now that I've jumped the gun, I think an interesting company that might buy Bitcoin next is Visa. This is coming absolutely from no knowledge whatsoever, but a little bit of the game theory. I know that Visa invests into some Bitcoin payments infrastructure projects. I know that at least Visa has like a section of their company that is Bitcoin crypto focused. And I feel like there's a little bit of a Visa Square kind of game that's being played. I mean, I know that they work together to some extent, but like also they are competitors in the large scheme of things. I could see Visa totally throwing some Bitcoin on their balance sheet, just to know like, this is something that'll eventually replace Visa. So why not buy it right now and then like get the upside in those if that actually happens, and also it's a good hedge. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
I bought Visa recently, and I usually invest based on who I think is going to fuck with Bitcoin.
There you go.
No, I think you guys are right. If they're smart, they're accumulating right now and just not telling anyone about it. Because, Visa already has like auxiliary fingers around Bitcoin. And so they're already well aware of it. They're already making moves, like business moves in regards to the Bitcoin space. So they could already be, getting their position in slowly, but who knows? Like I'm as much as I'm excited to see big companies come in, because like, I want to see number go up. So we need some big liquidity to come in and push the price up. But I want just like average people to get in. So like, I'm more of just like the everyday man, just like, okay, let's just shill it to everyone that we know. Let's get all the people in while the price is low before the companies come in and pump our bags to the moon. But I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Visa came in because, hey, number goes up. So let's get it.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I agree with that, but I think so. Brand, you made a good point. Like, we got to watch the companies that know about Bitcoin, are experimenting with it. I racked my brain, and I could only think of Microsoft with their Ion project. They are aware of it, so I think I have no basis for this claim, but like it'd be really cool if they started buying Bitcoin for reserve assets. And then Milo, in truth, what you were saying about just getting retail investors in, and this might be a bad take, but I really hope to see Dave Portnoy see the light and just bring his following. I think he's almost there. I think that'd be really great. I think he could really spread the word of Satoshi. But yeah, I'd be so happy to see more retail investors in here.
Number go up technology will take care of weekends, Portnoy. I have no doubt in that. No doubt of that.
Exactly.
Kenny, what were you going to say?
Well, you can also think about the companies that have large cash liabilities. So Apple comes to mind. They just have a ton of cash. And if
lots of debt, though. Debt cancels that cash.
Well, depending on whatever the equilibrium is for whatever sector we're thinking about, like any cash heavy business might be thinking, okay, well, maybe we don't have inflationary environments at the moment, but it's probably only a couple, bills through Congress away before we have something pretty inflationary. So I'll take a hedge on that against my cash that I have, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would also add, my live in truth, what you were saying. I'm all about getting more retail in, and my internal struggle is the competition between the validation of seeing these big players get in and say like, yeah, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, versus seeing the amount that they bought and then looking at my puny stack that I've been able to get over the past couple of years. And it's like, no, they just came in 2020 and just blew me out of the water. It hurts. But yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, leave some sats for us, the humble plebs out here. I need to accumulate some more, guys.
You're getting it at a way better rate than most companies will. Most companies will be buying your sats, and probably for more than you bought them, but probably for way too cheap still.
You think so lowly of me? You think I'm selling these things, dude? I don't own anything.
No, really, yeah. if you wanted the permabull standpoint, any amount of dollars that you can convert into Bitcoin is cheap Bitcoin.
Oof. Bullish. I like that one.
So I also think like there's, you're counting out all the corporations that run exchanges, like Charles Schwab, Ally Financial, uh, and even PayPal and Venmo, like you guys said. These guys can easily run have products that sell Bitcoin, and in order for them to do that, they have to learn about it, understand it, because competitors are doing it. And if Square is doing like Bitcoin purchases, you bet every other competitor is going to want to do the same thing, because that's just how business goes. So all these companies also have the potential to buy a ton of Bitcoin, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And something that, we're not thinking about, we see all these companies buying large amounts of Bitcoin, but we've got companies like Fidelity, they've been mining since 2014. They're basically buying Bitcoin every single day with energy. So I think it's easy to forget them, but they're there. And
Is it on their balance sheet though?
That's a
How are
good.
they categorizing it?
I do not know the answer to that.
Rodolfo, we might have to add that one to your list.
Do you have a fact checker on this call?
Yeah, so I don't know, but low key, like we've been talking about MicroStrategy and Square, but Galaxy Digital is a publicly traded company, and they've been messing around with Bitcoin and crypto for a long time. So I think that like sneakily, a lot of these other companies are going to emerge. Bitcoin Magazine, BTC Inc. has been holding Bitcoin on our balance sheet since 2013, longer than I've been in Bitcoin. So like this is a growing movement, and as entrepreneurs are learning about this, they're taking advantage of the technology, and Ali is a great example of that.
Yeah, and just going back to Galaxy, they just announced that they're rolling out financial services for miners. So I think that's really big.
All right. Do you guys want to keep talking about this? If not, the next subject is Bitcoin fundamentals, which kind of coalesces really well with what Stacy just said. All right, let's jump to that. Hey, Bitcoin hash rate just hit all-time high. Like what, today? Something like that? 140 something exahash? Like I remember when we broke 100 exahash, and that was like something special. That was like what, 6 months ago? So almost to 200.
Nice.
Let's get
Anyone
it
been
bullish.
Yeah, anyone been following like all of these Bitcoin fundamentals that are kind of hitting all-time highs? There's a lot of them. I can list them off if you want. Also, I need a drink.
Yeah, list them off. Get me more bullish than I already am.
The one that I keep seeing and coming back to is the number of like new wallet addresses, I think it is, that has just recently had this crazy spike that has been hard to trace back to anything in particular, except I saw a good thread trying to trace it back to China's new bullish sentiments on Bitcoin, which I'll drink for. But yeah, I mean that's a big big leading indicator of something huge happening in the retail market is when you start seeing a big delta in terms of number of new wallets.
Do you think any of that could be coming from BitMEX withdrawals?
It happened before that. It was back in like September that this started.
Cool. It's exciting.
We're almost at 2018 levels though. I mean, but that could also be just from like, okay, like some major wallet started implementing best practices and generating new addresses every time. Like, it's difficult to really, but I guess, generally speaking, directionally, it is bullet.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with CK. Like when I see that chart of more addresses, it's probably a flawed logic, but I just think of, like more people coin joining and more people realizing that they shouldn't be sending to the same addresses, and like CK said, wallets using better practices and stuff like that. But I'd be hyped to know that it was new users coming on board and hodling more Bitcoin. So definitely bullish. And then just on the other fact, like I've been hanging out with Bitvolt a lot, and he's a miner, and he kind of got me checking out the hash rate over price charts. And so every time I see the hash rate rising, I can just hear Nico like giggling and laughing, like, dude, it's so bullish, like this is so bullish. And so like I get so hyped to see the hash rate climbing, and I just always think like, man, if miners are investing this much money into mining Bitcoin, like there's no way that Bitcoin is going to die on us. And it just makes me so bullish. And I'm just like, as long as blocks keep coming in, it's like keep evangelizing Bitcoin, and like the future is bright, man. The future is orange. So like, let's see that hash rate rise.
Kenny, you got something?
Stock to flow ratio. Anybody?
Anyone still believe in that? I'm actually stock to flow. I like stock to flow still. I'm a believer for all you haters out there.
Yeah, I think we still have time to make our decision on the stock to flow. It's not invalidated yet. I'm still a bull tar, dude. 288K, like let's get it. That sounds nice to me.
Yeah, I think the stock flow, it's kind of controversial right now, but stock to flow, it makes sense in that it increases the purchasing power, and that's pretty much all that matters. If you want to get into numbers, that's all forecasts and whatnot. But at the end of the day, your purchasing power is going up by a lot, right? And yeah, and that's what people should really care about. Like Bitcoin is a savings technology. Over time, your purchasing power goes up, and it's a better alternative to putting your money, parking it in cash. So numbers, whether they hit it or not, you just know whether like countries around the world decide they want to print trillions or not. It doesn't matter. It's pegging them to the wall, each and every single one of them. And you want to print 20 trillion? Sure, Bitcoin will go to 4 or 5 million this year, right? So you want to be responsible? Be my guest. Purchasing power is still going to go up, right? So that's the best thing about the stock to flow. That's the one thing I'm most excited about, is that be irresponsible as much as you want. Bring the whole thing down for all I care. I'm just gonna focus on my business, my family, and nothing else matters, man. Like, you guys go have your little meetings, print trillions. I don't care. So
I like that. I would also, I haven't been too involved in the conversation around stock to flow, but I think that regardless of what you think of the specific chart that with the red dots, all right, regardless of what you think of that, the fundamental understanding of the stock to flow, like, it has to be correct. Like, you can't tell me that the fact that we have these crazy supply shocks happening in the system that end up creating the scarcity of Bitcoin don't like fundamentally interact with Bitcoin's price. Now you can argue that the chart's on the wrong axis, or that it goes up too much, or whatever you want, but this is the fundamental way that Bitcoin works. That's why the halving's important, is that you have this relationship between the amount of Bitcoin that's being printed at any given time and the price of it. So otherwise gold would be if stock flow didn't matter, then an infinite amount of gold wouldn't affect gold's price. It does. Therefore, like, there's some relationship there. So whether or not Plan B's got the right graph going has yet to be determined. I think people are already writing it off, whereas I don't think they should yet, because it's not fully invalidated. But I do think that there's something there, and it's wrong to just kind of throw it out the window.
Well, the best criticism for stock to flow is that Bitcoin stock to flow is already infinity, because there's a permanently hard cap at 21 million. So therefore, you can't, like, after that point, there's no stock. Like, it's zero. So therefore the stock to flow is infinity, and we all are investing based on 21 million. That's the best argument against it. But like right now, for the last 4 years, Bitcoin stock to flow has been at silver level. And when I talked to Lynn Alden on FedWatch, which is our macro podcast here at Bitcoin Magazine, and I asked her what's Bitcoin's role in the portfolio, she's someone who is coming from outside of Bitcoin, looking at Bitcoin relatively from an unbiased perspective. And she's like, it feels like silver to me because that's what its stock to flow has been, right? And so let's say 4 years later, Bitcoin stock to flow is currently at gold's level. Like, I'd be curious to hear if macro investors are saying like, the place of Bitcoin in your portfolio is gold because that is like what its level is, and then what happens next, because at the next halving, Bitcoin becomes harder than gold. Its stock to flow becomes more scarce than gold. And I mean, ultimately, Bitcoin is infinitely more scarce than gold because it has a hard cap and it's synthetically scarce. But in practice, we're not there yet, right? There's still new coins being minted and entering into the ecosystem. So I don't know. That's how I rationalize it, at least in my head.
No,
That makes a lot of sense. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, you
go.
can hit it. I was just gonna say like
I cut you off last time, so you go. So sorry.
It's I was just gonna say like I think CK is right in the sense that like for the majority, everyone is just like, okay, how much of the 21 million pie do I own, and then we judge from there. So like I agree with you. I think the concept stock to flow is a solid concept. There's no debate in the concept of stock to flow as put out by safety in the Bitcoin standard. It's just like whether the maths is correct. Like maths is hard. I'm not a math dude, so like who knows what the coins are doing over there, and so like I can't argue whether the chart, the stock to flow model is correct or not. I'm just over here waiting. It's like, all right, dude, if it says 2021 like 200k, like I'm here for the ride. Let's just watch it. And if not, like CK said, I believe the stock to flow as a concept is sound, and there's no other asset that's hard capped at 21 million, and so it's just like, all right, it's only time will tell whether the model's correct, but I'm pretty sure that the concept is solid.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, he's using historical data, right? He's the gold stock to flow, and he's mapping everything out. It's entertaining. I won't dismiss it. It's definitely, if you look into the numbers, he's a numbers guy. Something's got to be right in there. But to take it to like into the parallel universe, if anybody could DM me the block height of each dot, I would love that, because I want to try to make music from that. So if anybody knows the stock to flow dot, when every dot hits at what height, I've been curious. I did DM him. His DMs are probably blown up and he can't get to me. But if anybody knows where I can kind of find that info, that'd be great.
Yo, Plan B, if you're watching, hook our man Bitcoin Audio up. He'll make some tunes. Let's go. Yo, my living truth, you shared a tweet from Stony Bitson in the chat. What should we be looking there? What are we looking there?
It's well, we're talking about the stock to flow model, and he's got like a little meme where it's I forgot what it says, but it's like, Billy, it's time for you to learn about fiat, and they give him some money, and then he instantly goes to the Bitcoin like ATM, and he puts the fiat into the ATM, and then in the screen it's got the stock to flow model, and it's like, no. Just perfectly fitting, in my opinion.
I love that meme. When the stimulus checks went out, there was a great meme of like this exact thing. It was like, government gives you $120,000 or $1,200, and then what does Billy do? Buy Bitcoin with it.
Exactly.
That Bitcoin's up, what, 50%? Billy's a smart kid.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Billy's a genius.
There's this Twitter account that does my stimulus check is now worth something in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah, that's a Twitter account that I think a lot of people should follow, because it tells a really neat story and in a very simple way, and it's keeping those stimulus checks accountable, right? But going back to the stock to flow, I think one risk out of Plan B's model is people getting too attached to it. And I think they need to understand that it's just a model, it's a forecast. It's a forecast based on data. It's just like a weather forecast. If the weather forecast is wrong, you're not gonna go like, flip out, right? So if people get too attached to the exact numbers, and then if Bitcoin doesn't hit that, they lose faith in Bitcoin, and they're like, oh, this is not what it is, and they sell it, then they don't really understand Plan B's model, in my opinion. And I think some of the people opposing Plan B's model, they have that intention behind their criticism, in that they're telling people don't put like all of your faith in that model, so you wouldn't get disappointed and sell it if it doesn't hit those numbers, right? So yeah, don't get too attached to the model. Just know price is going to go up because the stock to flow is increasing, and that's what matters, man. Like, don't get obsessed with the numbers or 288 or whatever, right? Just have faith in the technology itself, not some forecast that's being made.
I found the tweet, by the way. It's they actually just tweeted an hour ago. Your stimulus check would now be worth $1,962, which is a 63.5% increase. So, really just not good.
Yeah, and
can't wait for that in a year.
Well, yeah, as this stuff is being talked about now in Congress, like there might be another one, and so that's really relevant.
Totally. Yeah.
So our next. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, like riffing on kind of the Bitcoin fundamentals, we got to think back to where we were at the beginning of this year. I mean, beginning of this year, the block reward was 12.5 Bitcoins. We didn't know anything about a global pandemic going on yet. I mean, it's been crazy the ride that Bitcoin's gone through this year. I mean, we hit that cascading drop on like March 12th. I mean, we've gone all the way from 3,800, I think we hit, to where we are now, creeping up on 11K again. It's a crazy amount of movement that we've had this year, even though it feels like Bitcoin hasn't moved at all in the past like 2 or 3 months. It's been a wild ride. So, I think people right now are in a false sense in our market are in a false sense that like somehow Bitcoin is slow to move. Like it's not. We're only at around 11K. We're not going to be at 15K until 2021. No. Bitcoin could jump like overnight in terms of how much it could go up. I mean, we could be. This is actually kind of getting to the last section, but like we could easily be at all-time highs by the end of this year, if not sooner. And I think that all of the market kind of forces right now are clearly signaling in that direction. And the fact that people aren't freaking out about it, in my opinion, is even more bullish because it's just like people haven't realized it yet. There's not a single signal right now in the Bitcoin market that isn't pointing bullish. Challenge that. Feel free.
I would actually add on top of that and say, like, if you take out the 2 weeks in 2017 where Bitcoin hit 20,000, if you just take out those 2 weeks, consider them as like a frenzy of some sort, right? Bitcoin is probably at all-time highs or very close to it right now.
Well,
right?
It did hit 14,000 at Bitcoin 2019. You're welcome.
Yeah, very, very close to it, right? Like it's those 2 weeks at 2017, they were just like insane, right? And it didn't stay there for long. It doesn't really count if it doesn't stay there that long, in my opinion. So yeah, we're getting there, man.
So Brand, I've got something for you then. So I don't know about you, but I've been a little disappointed with the correlation with Bitcoin to the rest of the markets, right? I'd like an uncorrelated asset. And so, like you said, in March, we had everything went off a cliff. Maybe that was because the pandemic just blew everything away. That's literally why we're having this conversation, is because of quarantine. But do you think we've got some, uncertainty coming up really close in November, and potentially some choppy waters, at least in an equity market? Might the coupling between Bitcoin and the rest of the economy or maybe put it this way, as Bitcoin grows and becomes integrated with the rest of the economy, is it more correlated, or is the digital gold part going to eventually break free from this, and this was just a fluke?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great statement and question. And, obviously I'm not an expert. I don't know the answer. I will say what's interesting is earlier in the pandemic, there were a lot of charts showing that Bitcoin was most correlated to gold. And then if you look at, Trump getting coronavirus just last week, Bitcoin was most correlated to stocks. And so in some ways, it's like Bitcoin is correlated to whatever it feels like being correlated to at any given moment. And so, like, in some ways that makes it uncorrelated, in other ways it makes it, I don't know, hyper correlated. But what's interesting to me is that, ultimately Bitcoin is uncorrelated, and so it's just a matter of time that people realize that it acts in a way that is different from other markets. And so until that realization happens, that's just informational arbitrage that you have. It's like, I know that eventually Bitcoin is the safe haven, Bitcoin is the hedge against, everything else. And if it's not acting like that, then that means that that's just something that I can have in my toolbox for later. I know it's a terrible answer, but that's kind of how I see it.
No, but I'd agree with you, Brand, because I kind of considered the volatility that we saw like in March and other correlations to traditional markets more so like correlated to weak hands that don't really know what they own, and so they just may have bigger bags, and so they're able to move the market more easily than what you and I and the majority of us would do. So like I do believe that Bitcoin is the uncorrelated asset, but depending on who the biggest mover is and who's the most scared at the moment, then they'll be able to move the market. And it's just like Bitcoin is works on human psychology. So we're still dealing with humans at the end of the day. And if there's uncertainty in society and no one really knows what's going on, so like the price will fluctuate, but like at a certain point we'll get to that the gradually then suddenly point where Bitcoin just explodes and it really uncorrelates and decouples from traditional markets. But as of now, we're just barely getting out of the like bear market, and the price is slowly creeping up, and so we don't really have that many like market participants in the Bitcoin space. I've been kind of saying that it's just kind of a bunch of like weak hands and hodlers, and we're just like trading bags. And so it's just only a matter of time until we get really like the next like 2017 like retail push of everyone just coming in, and it's an exponential explosion. So like in the meantime, we may be correlated to traditional markets, but I do feel it's only a matter of time until like the price just explodes due to the scarcity. And like on to what Ollie was saying, if you take out the 2017 to 20K price, like the price of Bitcoin has steadily been going up. I just saw Guy Swan post today about the 200-day moving average, and it's at like all-time high. So, like the market is going up and to the right, but if you get caught up in the short-term volatility and all the peaks and troughs, then you'll be like, man, like this market's really volatile and it's not going anywhere. And we're all just the Bitcoin meme of like the stick figure guy poking Bitcoin, like do something already, like please do something. So we're like all getting bored, and we're just like, we're just like,
I don't know about you. Bitcoin keeps getting more expensive for me, bro. I remember stacking at 7K. Yo,
exactly.
2 days ago, Keith McCullough, he's like a
man.
famous hedge fund manager, CEO of Hedgeye Risk Management, tweets, "I sold all my Bitcoin." So little did you know that Square was about to announce that they bought Bitcoin. I bought his Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin's
But
up what, like 4% since then? 5%?
yeah, I mean, like, here's the reality is that don't sell Bitcoin because you have no idea what someone else is discovering. What Michael Saylor is discovering that Bitcoin is the hardest asset in the world, and that's why you don't trade Bitcoin. And the thing is that a lot of people right now that trade Bitcoin are also people that trade tech stocks. They're millennials that are jumping on
Yep.
Robinhood. It's the same people. So like to think that okay, right now it's correlated, the same people that are trading it day to day are the same people that are entering into the market and being idiots elsewhere. Like I'm not surprised, but that's not intrinsic to Bitcoin. So like whatever, it's just a theme of late 2020.
One more thing I would add, and this is adding to my living truth as well. An interesting theory that I saw that I can't give any credence to except for that it makes sense in my head is that Bitcoin recently has taken on a new market force dynamic that has never been around before, which is the after hours liquidity crunch collateral. And something that I was reading about and like learning about is on that March 12th sell off, there's a lot of people who think and like point to there being a like correlating sell off in the stock market the next day, and that there were a lot of companies and trading firms and investment banks and all that kind of stuff who were actively covering their like hedging their losses on options contracts and other things that they needed to post new collateral that had to move money from somewhere overnight, and Bitcoin was the only thing overnight that they could really interact with and sell very quickly. And so it was actually, in some ways, and this is like a very strange take, but it's interesting to me. In some ways, Bitcoin actually saved some of these traders their positions in the market when that sell-off happened. And so Bitcoin actually was hyper useful in that one scenario. You can almost kind of see it similarly happening with that Trump COVID thing again, where the market tanked, but Bitcoin tanked first, even though that happened, I think, during trading days, during trading hours. But yeah, so, just another thing that affects how Bitcoin is correlated is, when people need liquidity in a crunch, Bitcoin never stops trading.
It's funny how illiquid but so liquid Bitcoin is at the same time. And like that's probably one of its most amazing properties. I don't think people really appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. Like the fact that you have the freedom to sell it any time of the week, any time of the day, any day of the week, it adds to its feature of being a great savings technology, right? Because it gives you that freedom. Doesn't mean you should be doing it every day, right? Michael Saylor, hit the nail, on that point where just because you can do it, right, doesn't mean that you should do it, right? So I don't get those traders, man. Like, I don't, the way what I see Bitcoin is, it's not made to be traded. It's not. I don't see it as a payments technology either. I think other technologies are more advanced, but it's the best savings technology out there. So why would you ever trade that, right? You have the freedom to have Bitcoin like save you any time of the day you want, but yeah, it shouldn't be traded like that. But kudos to the guy who sold it.
I would
Yeah,
add
right.
into, I think I saw that the guy who sold it had only bought it back like on September 23rd. Someone like dug up his tweet, so it was like literally he held it for a week or two and immediately sold it. So it's not like it was some crazy long position that he had built up, as far as we know.
It's another weak hand that doesn't understand Bitcoin.
Yeah, just the
So-
hedge fund Portnoy.
So we've kind of digressed very far away from companies holding Bitcoin, but I kind of want to turn it back to companies holding Bitcoin and ask Stacy, like as a provider of multi-sig and kind of an insider into people and institutions taking Bitcoin custody into their own hands, like are you bullish that companies that eventually start holding Bitcoin as part of their balance sheet, that they're going to be, doing some sort of collaborative custody or multi-sig or something like that, that's not just putting their funds in Coinbase.
Yeah, for sure. I think the reason why you want to have Bitcoin in the first place is to be your own bank. So I have no doubt that these companies are going to want to self-custody. We deal a lot with more on the individual side as opposed to the company side. But I'm very bullish. Yeah, I think that's the only way I can answer that question.
But do you think, like, even let's just say wealthy individuals, like, they're coming from a perspective of like, my bank's going to take care of me, my bank is actually giving me concierge service, like I have no issues in the world, I'm in this closed bubble, like why would they want to take risk, like like custodial risk onto their Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, that's one of the problems right now is that there is custodial, it's like a good amount of custodial risk. Like I think the user is unfortunately like a really weak point in self custody. Like you can accidentally shoot yourself in the foot a number of different ways. But we've seen a lot of technologies this year, specifically around multi-sig, come out to help companies and individuals secure their Bitcoin in a way that's safer and easier. I don't think we're totally there yet. And I can, like at Casa, our most popular offering is the one that comes with a client service advisor because people are afraid to do multi-sig on their own. We hold an emergency key. We don't have custody of your funds. Most of them are 3 of 5 setups or 2 of 3. But I think it's important that we build a bridge for people to get there, to get to self-custody in a way that's like comfortable and safe and easy.
Anyone else that, like, Ollie, I don't know if this is too personal information, but how do you feel about multi-sig self-custody for Tahiti's Bitcoins?
So for for me personally, I'm all about personal custody. Um, do your homework, learn how to be your own bank. Like this is stuff that you need to spend time to learn. With Tahini's, our Bitcoin is held through QBTC, which is like through our like brokerage account, and we did that because like we are pretty early into this, and we don't know what type of regulations that we need to go through to actually own physical Bitcoin as a company. So, and we were in FOMO mode, and we wanted to buy it as fast as we can. So we we did the one thing that is the fastest option that was available to us. But personally, I think everybody should self custody their Bitcoin. Learn how to multi-sig, but also learn how to do it on an individual hard wallet. It's a process, right? Like you learn, first you got to learn how to buy it, then to how to move it around, how to custody it in a hardware wallet, and then do a multi-sig setup. And you got to go through all these processes. You can't go straight to multi-sig from the beginning. I think you gotta learn these things as you go on. Because if you try to explain somebody new about multi-sig, he's gonna look at you and think you're crazy, right? But teach him how to use a hard wallet first. Then tell him the importance of multi-sig. Then he'll probably get around. And yeah, I think that's how you should do it. What about you guys? Like, what do you think on uh, single sig, multi sig? How do you guys manage that?
Multi-sig is great. When pay to script hash first kind of came out, I don't know, he was what, 2011, 2010, something like that. I just get into Bitcoin around 2012, and I try to actually compose my own script hash myself, and that's how I lost half a Bitcoin. So just saying. Yeah, be careful out there.
No, that's so like I'm definitely in the process of like moving coin over to multisig, but like what Kenny said is like the exact reason why like I don't want to move my funds over to multisig. It like I'm not that dumb, but like I'm not that smart, guys. Like, you know, I'm just like the average dude, you know what I'm saying? Like it just seems like way more complicated than I might need to, but like I said earlier, you know, I'm very paranoid, and so like I'm thinking of what attacks are possible, and so that's why I'm like, all right, I need to move my shit over to multisig. But for the average user, I'm gonna just say like single sig is probably good for them in the meantime while we iron out the kinks and make multisig easier for, you know, like just the average pleb. But you know, I'm very excited and like wanting to learn what's going on with the multi-sig stuff so that I can be as secure as possible. But yeah, I'm definitely afraid of losing Bitcoin. So shouts out to Kenny. Rough one.
Well, it was like $100. You know, like, it'll be fine. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your sacrifice, Kenny. I'm very curious to hear Stacy's thoughts on this, but I recently did a back-to-back interview series with Michael Flaxman, who did the 10x guide to improve your Bitcoin security with multisig, and then Rodolfo Novak, who is the CEO of CoinKite and the creator of the cold card. So, and they had very opposite opinions. With Max, he was saying that single sig is actually for experts, because with a single sig, you are exposed to trusting the random number generator on the device that you're using. But at least with multi-sig, you have like redundancy. If you use 3 different manufacturers, like you're not trusting a single random number generator. That he was arguing that actually multi-sig, using kind of like the MVP basics of how to do multi-sig, is for beginners, and that single sig, because of the additional complexities and risks, is for experts. And then Rodolfo comes around and saying like, no, what you need to do is just buy a cold card and put your seed on a metal plate as a backup and put that somewhere else. And that is way less complex. That's way more simple. Like there's way less chances of effing up. And to be honest, I understand both. Like I'll dox a little bit how I do my shit, but I do half my stash in multi-sig and half my stash like in a hardware setup on a single sig with just a really good backup setup. And I don't know, it's tough to figure out what's the best situation for your funds, but I mean, I would argue that we're still very much in a stage where the best and optimal setup is yet to be invented, and you got to tread really, really carefully.
Yeah, there's definitely trade-offs, and it really boils down to what your threat model is. So if you're splitting your stash between a multi-sig and a single sig setup, you've diversified a little bit, but you've also increased the attack surface, because you could have everything in multi-sig, or now you've got this like seed phrase that could be compromised. It's not only like you could lose your seed phrase, but it's like someone could take your seed phrase. Of course, Rodolfo's going to push the cold card narrative because he sells them. I think single sig is a lot easier. It's the concept of it is just so much easier to understand, especially when you talk about like brain wallets. Like you can just memorize your seed phrase and cross borders. Like that's really cool. Or you could distribute your keys and cross a border without a key, and like you've got 2 keys wherever you're going. So you didn't even have to memorize a seed phrase to begin with. I really like multi-sig for the redundancy. You mentioned you can use devices from different manufacturers, so you're protecting yourself against supply chain attacks. If one of your keys is compromised, oh no, you lost a Bitcoin to a brain wallet. Kenny, I got some questions about that.
No, I didn't lose a whole Bitcoin. I did it and I did it on purpose. So anyway, keep.
Thank you for your contribution. Real quick, did you did you make a script that couldn't be unlocked? Did you send the Bitcoin to somewhere that couldn't?
I have no idea.
Okay.
In terms of the Brain Wallet, I this was also back in 2013 or so, when Brain Wallets were like, oh, if you do something that you can remember, that's great, but probably something somebody else can figure out, right? So I thought, okay, well, if I put like it was very, very small amount into just today's date, how long would it take to get swiped? And it was 15 minutes, like gone.
Wait, sorry, can you explain that? Did you make a seed phrase that was today's date?
No, I take today's date, SHA-256. That's a private key. Put it on the network. See how long it takes to get.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes.
Did you tell anyone?
No.
Oh wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was when was that? When was that?
That was like 2013, 2014, way back.
So you've had all kinds of weird giving away Bitcoin experiments back in the day.
Yes,
Can we
that's
just like
a lot
hit
of
on
what
some
I
of
did.
those?
Yeah, I want to know more. What else have you done?
Kenny's
All right,
the
so
OG Bitcoin faucet.
Yeah, actually. So this is the best one though, guys. So this is after I really took the orange pill hard, and but I wanted to do some trolling, of course, because that's what you're gonna do on the internet, right? So on our Bitcoin, before it is today, I created a post, and I had a QR code and a dollar bill, and I stuck it to a telephone post outside of my condo building, and I just said, which one's gonna go first? And on the QR code, I'd put $10 worth of Bitcoin, so it's 10 times the value, right? But it's of course trolling, because the dollar's going to go first, because nobody knows what Bitcoin is, right? Little did I know that because it's on the internet, people started putting Bitcoin onto the QR code from all over the world, and then it's just started kind of blowing up, and people were like, "Oh, it's this massive scavenger hunt," because I didn't say where it was. And eventually somebody found it, and they had total hash power, and they created a vanity address to deposit the Bitcoins into. So I have no idea who it was, but by the time it was all done, I think there was 0.4 Bitcoin on it, and at the time that was worth $100. So it went up 10 times from the stuff I put onto it. And that was
so
my
cool.
Kenny,
that was
no
like the
idea
funnest
who
thing
it
I did.
was.
But of course, right? And that's the first thing people accused me of, because the private key literally was on the back of that thing, right? And I was like, well, maybe I should just go out there and take it, because that's it's $100. But no, I didn't. But I wish I did. And I don't.
Well, now that's $4,000 if you hodled.
Yeah, who knows?
How long did it take for all this to happen?
Probably about 6 or 8 hours. I had to give way little clues before people figured it out.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Fucking OGs giving away 0.4 Bitcoin just like nothing.
Yep, it's out there on Reddit somewhere.
But that's going to be us. Like, for example, Bitcoin Magazine, we have a partner company, sister company called earncarrot.com. And we're like giving away shitloads of sats, hundreds of thousands of sats, tens of thousands of sats. And like, we might look back at that in 10 years and be like, oh my God, we gave away millions of dollars of sats just for like subscribe to this like newsletter or like whatever random task that we had on there. So we're still in early days, guys, really are.
This is why when people like love to hate on Laszlo for buying those 2 pizzas, but like you said, that could be us in 10 years.
100%. Well, I've spent lots of sats on cold cards.
Yeah, that Laszlo story is probably the biggest sacrifice in history, probably for a cause that's like really as noble as Bitcoin. And like you mentioned this earlier, Stacy, where you said like you had family that said, oh, like back in the day, like $10 used to buy me this and that. And everybody has somebody that says these stories in their families. And for me, it's all my uncles and all my dad and everybody. It's like, oh, back in my day, like, 1 Egyptian pound used to buy me like 5 bags of chips and this and that. And it's right there in their face. And Bitcoin has the ultimate, story which is the pizza story, that is only going to create like a stronger narrative for Bitcoin as time goes by. Those two pizzas are going to be worth probably billions in the future, which is going to even make the narrative of Bitcoin against fiat even, like, I don't know how
Those
many.
pizzas will be worth more than entire countries' treasuries.
Yes, 100%. And that's the ultimate story for Bitcoin. That's the only story that is gonna matter in the narrative to normal folks, right? Normal folks that grow up saying, "Oh, back in the day, $10 used to buy me this and this and that," right? This is a story that will just like hit them in the face and tell them that they're doing something like like completely wrong, right?
Yeah,
And I love that story. And thank you to Laszlo for that. That was truly the biggest sacrifice in humanity, I think.
The man also invented GPU mining, so
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
he's
all right.
aight. I think he's aight.
Exactly.
And the thing that just made me think of is like, right now when our grandma tells us how she, went to the movies for a nickel, we're like, okay, go ahead, grandma. And now, when we're the grandma and grandpa, we're just gonna be looked at as idiots. They're gonna be like, you spent how much on? Yeah, it's gonna be a funny little shift.
Back in my day, a Bitcoin could only buy a car, and
It's like now it'll buy you a country.
yeah.
Hey, there are already more than 21 million millionaires in the world today, so just keep that in mind.
I think there's more than 21 million millionaires in like the U.S. I think it's like 48 or something, like 48. Some I don't know. There's a lot. Like,
Damn, I got no Bitcoin, but flexing hard.
exactly. I don't know Bitcoin, but damn, this shit's gonna go to the moon.
Oh
Well,
man.
Ollie, I don't know about you. If you have kids, I teach my kids about money with Bitcoin. Like I ask them, well, how many Bitcoins would you have to have in order to, buy this or that? And I do that very intentionally, right? So there's not only just the narrative of this is a perfect savings agent, but also, as adults and potentially adults with children, we can teach our kids about money and savings using this technology.
100%. 100%. I agree. I have a son. He's 2.5 years old, so he's a little young for me to teach him about those things. But uh, again, going back to the original idea of a piggy bank, and Bitcoin is the best representation of that idea, right? And if you teach that to little kids, and if you teach that to put, like $10, $20, teach them to put that into Bitcoin, and have them wait 1 year or 2 years, and then have them see the outcome of that. I think that's a huge kudos for you for doing that. And I can't wait to do that. I'm waiting for my son to start talking. So
Hey, best thing you can do, and sorry, Stacey, to interrupt, but if you have any like kids or nephews or nieces that are like 10 to 15, they start having smartphones, instead of giving them cash, give them Bitcoin, because they're going to text you 3 months later being like, holy S, like how much is the Bitcoin worth? And then they're going to be totally red pilled at that point on. And it is really, I've experienced it in my life. It's freaking awesome. They always text me like, hey, can I buy some Bitcoin from you? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, yes, let's go.
awesome.
Kenny, are your kids really good at mental math because they always have to like think of the exchange rate?
No, well, the thing is, the kids really like small numbers, 1, 2, right? So I mean, I don't point at things, but houses work really well for this. Well, how many Bitcoins would it take to buy that mansion over there? Well, that's only 10 Bitcoins, that kind of thing. So it's usually we're dealing with small numbers and that kind of thing. So that usually works well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta make SAT the standard, so they do the heavy mental math.
How many stats is that, honey? I don't know.
Ali,
Yo, sats are hard. Sats are hard.
you made me think that there's probably a huge market out there for Bitcoin nursery rhymes, and that someone needs to jump on that.
100%.
The Bitcoin rabbi is already a step ahead with his children's book,
Oh, yeah.
Bitcoin Money.
Well, we got Bitcoin audio. You can make some songs.
Yeah, we'll make some maybe in the future. But listen, sats will be the standard. So thinking in sats, one sat, in the future is going to buy you a whole lot, right? So, well, since it's so early, the mental math is hard because we're like BTC, sats. But in the future, to Ali's point, there's so many people are going to be using Bitcoin. It's only going to be like, okay, sats. Then the real heavy duty OGs, they think in BTCs, but the future OGs will be thinking in sats.
You bring up a really good
Absolutely.
point. If you think just from a numbers game, one sat is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, but the problem is that we have 7.6 billion people on Earth right now. And so if you're just thinking in terms of dividing a Bitcoin, into Satoshi, and the economic output of any given action that a human does needing to be measured by some pricing mechanism, one sat's not going to do it. And once hybrid Bitcoinization happens, so we will have to be able to divide even further than that. So just want to throw that out there.
So I actually have a question for Bitcoin Audio. I know you have a family too. Do you talk to your family about Bitcoin, and like, do you teach your kids about money with Bitcoin like Kenny?
I do talk about it. I tend to get overly passionate. So sometimes it comes across like I'm like a car salesman, or I'm trying to sell something. So that's just the stage of Bitcoin that I'm in. I'm slowly graduating into a more, laid back, look, this is what money is. Okay. Just leave Bitcoin out of it. Understand what money is. Okay. And how our country and how things are, moving, and the money printing thing little by little. I try to give bits and pieces because, I'm not the greatest explainer of things. So I try to give bits and pieces to try to help them understand bits and pieces of how money works. And then, explain to them, look, you got an infinite amount of money here, which makes the current fiat you have less valuable. Well, over here you have a fixed amount, and the value is just going to increase. Like, I try to do that. So they, it's not a household name. Everybody here knows that I'm into Bitcoin, and I'm their Bitcoin guy. But yeah, it's baby steps, whether they're 2 or 12 or 16 or 26, you still have to do baby steps, and each person individually, you have to approach a certain way to explain to them what it is that Bitcoin is, and ultimately what money is, because it is a new money. It's money 2.0 or 3.0 or 5.0, however you want to put it, right? It's new money. Technology technology grasps all these things in our life and made advancements, but money's been left behind. And now it's changing, and you just got to strategically educate, right? Without it sounding like you're trying to shove it down their throat and stuff like that. Something I'm learning the hard way, but you got to learn somehow, right?
Totally.
Gigi, actually, at Gigi on Twitter, I hung out with him in person, and he was telling me the best way to pitch Bitcoin is to pitch Bitcoin without actually talking about Bitcoin at all. Like, talk about the problems, and it's never been easier. Like, it has never been easier to talk about Bitcoin and be like, look at what's wrong with that. Look at what's wrong with that. Look at what's wrong with that. That's why Bitcoin. And I mean, I think that that's not going to change, unfortunately.
I'm a big fan of just showing people WTF happened in 1971.com and then saying like, oh, I wonder what happened. Yeah, weird. We're not in the gold standard anymore.
So yesterday night, actually, I was at a friend's house, and I'm in the Bay Area. People are generally more left-leaning. And she was saying, like, we were talking about society and like what's happening and having a great conversation over wine. She's like, something happened in like the late 60s, early 70s. It was, like, I don't know what happened to society. And I was like, oh, it's funny that you say that. Like, there's this cult website called WTF Happened in 1971 that Bitcoiners love. Like, you should check it out. She's like, oh, what happened? And like, oh, that's when they broke the gold standard on the dollar. She's like, oh. Slowly but surely, people are getting orange pilled. Like, and here's the best thing about it: the government is doing it. No one is better. No one is a better Bitcoin advocate than every bad central bank around the world.
100%.
And,
I mean,
What's
in
the worst
addition
central
to that,
bank?
like a lot of
Venezuela.
people don't know
Who's the
what
most
the gold.
Bitcoin? Venezuela.
Yeah, some people don't know what the gold standard is, so like you have to actually get into that, which is tough. If you know, I didn't really understand what that was or even knew about it until, you know, I'm older, until Bitcoin. I mean, I've heard about it before, but didn't really dive in until Bitcoin, because Bitcoin teaches you. And the funny thing is, it's not an inanimate thing, but so many things can come from this, what's becoming an organism, right? So many things come from Bitcoin, knowledge, companies that didn't exist before, jobs that didn't exist before. All of these things are born from this Bitcoin, right? And it's just, and so the education part, back to the gold standard thing, you're teaching people about money and 1971 and the gold standard. That's another rabbit hole. Gotta dive into and try to educate people on. So.
Yeah, and to your point, CK, like it's getting a lot easier to, you know, to pitch Bitcoin right now just because of everything that's happening in the world, and I see that in the future people are going to fall harder and faster as time goes by. I mean, look at Michael Saylor, right? Guy, you know, studies Bitcoin in 2020, buys $425 million of Bitcoin in 2020, right? Same thing with us, right? Although we didn't buy 425 million.
Quick rip though. That's awesome. Both just like, so talk to me really quick before we do last word, because we're kind of getting pretty long here. But what comment about the Bitcoin educational material that's out there? Like, what was your journey like going down the rabbit hole and being like, holy shit, I need to do this?
So first I bought it out of curiosity, right? And I gotta give a shout out to Preston Pish. He kind of laid some groundwork, and he got me curious to do that first buy. But just like anything, when you buy it, you really start studying it afterwards. And I kept digging a little bit deeper, and I stumbled upon the number 0 in Bitcoin. And that's where it all clicked for me. And I read it, you know, once, a second time, a third time, right? Just to get it all in. And then I started going down the rabbit hole ever since. Of course, I dragged all my partners with me. They all became Bitcoiners themselves. Then I started reading books and podcasts and everything. And this was all during like mid-March, right? Like March, April, throughout this whole time period. The more I learned, the more I bought. And like, you know, read Saifedean's book, bought more. Read Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth, bought more. Just kept listening to nonstop shows as I'm like making like shawarma spits, and I'm just, yeah, it was a great part of our careers, I think, because like number one, we were getting the business out of a hole, right? Because March, like you want to see a hard time, try owning a restaurant during March, right? See how that feels. It's like when you see your sales drop like 70-80%, it's one of the most depressing things that you can go through. And we had 3 restaurants at that point, right? So we were each in one of the restaurants, and we let most of the people go, and I was right there myself, doing all the work, washing all the dishes, making all the shawarma spits, making the wraps, feeding the people, doing everything. And while I'm doing all that, I have my earphones in my ear, and I'm learning about Bitcoin, and I'm reading, like listening to everything. And I kept buying more and more and more until I realized that it's like the biggest part of my portfolio. So, and also, like in the initial dip of March, I bought a lot of stocks. Those stocks started going up, so I started selling all those stocks and buying more Bitcoin. And yeah, it made sense based on what's happening in the world right now, and the decisions taken by central banks around the world. So like I said, it's pretty easy to figure this stuff out, right? And people are going to fall harder and faster than ever before. You guys are awesome because you guys figured this out early, and kudos to you, right? Respect. I had no idea about Bitcoin before 20. Like I had an idea of it, but I had no idea what it was. So this is the perfect setup for people to understand the value of Bitcoin, for normal people to understand the value. We're trying to spread awareness as a restaurant business that has nothing to do with crypto. We hope that resonates with normal folks out there, because some people, they hear a crypto like analyst or somebody that works in the crypto space talk about Bitcoin, and they're like, yeah, whatever, this is a techie guy, like it's not my, they don't get it. So hopefully if they see a normal business like us, that's like that runs a six.
Do y'all rep Bitcoin hard in the store?
No, we do it all on Twitter. We operate like, so that's the thing. Like,
You accept Bitcoin?
No, no. So again, the info, like I got a ton of messages, people asking me, do you accept Bitcoin? And we don't, like, the infrastructure to apply that to all the restaurants is kind of a pain in the butt, right? And even if we do, how many of our customers are going to come pay in Bitcoin? Not even 5%. So it's not really worth it.
You're gonna get some great meetups in your restaurant, I guarantee it.
I welcome it.
That's worth it right there.
Yeah. I'd love it. I always tell people, listen, like, do not spend your Bitcoin, right? It's hoard that, right?
But what if you could earn it? I'm just trying to push a narrative here. It's fine. Watch the commercial after the show. Y'all, it's getting late. We're past 2 hours here. I know we all have lives here. Some of y'all on the East Coast. Let's wrap this one up. Let's close out with some last words, and would like to start with Kenny. Kenny, what is your last word, sir?
Well, I think we're just getting started with Bitcoin, as many people here just said. I do think it's an absolute great savings mechanism, and that's what I use it for the most part. So that's my advice. I can't tell you whether the number is going to go up, but that's what I think it's going to happen.
Cool. Number go up. All right. Bitcoin audio. You next.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And just, Bitcoin itself is, has so much value in it when it comes monetarily. I'm going to speak for us at Bitcoin Audio. The data, the network itself has value. God forbid Bitcoin goes to zero, it still has value to us. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it's not just about, the person to person or the store of value. It has a value. I mean, just the technology itself is worth something, right? It's very secure. The downtime's minimal. That's worth something to someone, isn't it? So how could it ever be worthless? I don't know. It's just something to think about. That's where my head's at, with the value and using that data and that network to then create other things that have value as well. All right.
Yeah, no, I think that there's something there, and we're going to be discovering that, right? Like, there's so much anthropological stuff that you can just learn about humans just by looking at this ultimate map of human transactions that is the Bitcoin blockchain. So I'm excited to see that kind of like blockchain archaeology continue to get built out, and other, innovators like yourself, like find out interesting ways to like leverage that data. Let's jump to Optimist, My Living Truth. What's your last word, sir?
Yo, what's up? Thanks for having me out. I appreciate it. Just stay toxic, stay stacking. Orange coin good, number go up. Bitcoin fixes this. The floor is set. We out ya.
All right, let's go. All right, let's end it with Stacy, and then Ollie, you can close it out.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. My last word is not necessarily directly related to Bitcoin, but if you live in the US, please, who knows if it'll work, but contact your senators and representatives and tell them that you do not support the Earn It Act, which is basically an attack against free speech and cryptography. If you want to learn more, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has a lot of good information on it. We just don't need another battle against encrypted messaging. So please speak up. Thanks.
Yeah, boo to the Earn It Act, and F these stupid acronyms that actually sound like nice. That's the epitome of euphemisms.
It's the I can't believe it's not butterism. It's name something exactly what you want it to be when it's the exact opposite. I digress. Ali, close us out.
All right, I just want to thank you guys for having me, and it's great meeting you all. I love coming on and talking about Bitcoin and trying to make it as normal for normal people as much as I can. Thank you for having me, and also if anybody out there wants to open a profitable restaurant, shoot us a DM. Let's talk about it. We do franchising. Yeah, and thank you for the support, guys.
Very cool. Well, let's close it out. Stay humble, stack sats, subscribe to Bitcoin Magazine. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.